am Siti Ruzena, and I am going to present the introduction of the Natrah'S issue. Natrah was dubbed the Jungle Girls by the Western media has indeed received widespread coverage around the world starting in 1950. The Natrah issue is a polemic issue that once described Malaya. The tragedy stemmed from a court decision that Natrah should be returned to her biological parents, and her father given the right to determine his daughter's religion according to Dutch law. Natrah, who had been converted to Islam, was deported to the Netherlands and subsequently returned to her original religion, which is Christianity. The decision disappointed the Muslim community in Singapore and Malaya. Riots in Singapore in 1952 united the Malays who were determined to uphold the dignity of Islam until they questioned the colonial rule. The thing that has triggered them to act and rise up is the attitude of the Western media, which denigrates Islam. The picture of Natrah praying and kneeling in front of a statue of Virgin Mary in a church has become a hot topic in Western media, which some writing describing how happy Natrah was, relieved to be Christian again, has caused many Malays to be angry and upset. This shows how Western media has clouded the situation. The Natrah issue is a history and that must be told and repeatedly to today's youth so that they remember their duty as a Muslim and as a future leader of the country.
My name is SESI-2. Next, I will represent about Natrah background. Natrah Meroff, or her real name, is Huberdina Maria Hartog. Natrah Meroff is the child of a Dutch couple and was born on March 24, 1937 in the Malay Archipelago in Bandung. Born into a Catholic family, Natrah was baptized in the Roman Catholic Church of Saint Ignatius at Zimai on 10 April by a Catholic priest. His father, Adrianus Hartog, was a surgeon in the Dutch army. Her mother, Adeline, is Eurasian of Scottish descent and grew up in Java. When she was 5 years old, she was handed over by her mother and grandmother Nur Lushan to a Malay woman from Kemaman, Terengganu, namely Cik Aminah Muhammad. Cik Aminah accepted Adeline's responsibility and trust. Starting that day, Cik Aminah accepted Natrah as her own biological child. Even more than that, for Cik Aminah, Natrah is not just a child but her soul. In Terengganu, under the care of Cik Aminah, Natrah lived a new life. She was given a cultural and religious education that Cik Aminah followed, which is Islam and Malay culture. British court ordered Cik Aminah to place Natrah in the care of the Singapore Social Welfare Department. Natrah later transferred custody to the Dutch Consul General in Singapore. Natrah was released on 28 July 1950. After 4 months in British custody, Cik Aminah married Natrah to Mansur Adabi. 2 days after the wedding, a summons was issued to Mansur and Cik Aminah on behalf of Natrah's biological parents. Natrah's biological family began gathering evidence to reclaim custody of Natrah.
In this part, I will elaborate about Natrah issue in greater detail. The Natrah case began as a custody dispute but quickly escalated into a religious dispute. The reason is that Natrah is a Muslim but her biological parents do not agree and want to take her back, ready to force her to accept Christianity, and this led to the Natrah riots in 1950 and became one of the greatest lessons in the history of Malaysia and Singapore. Natrah's name first appeared in the press as a result of a custody battle in the Netherlands between her Malay foster mother and her biological parents. As Natrah married at the age of 13 to a young man named Mansur Adabi, 20 years old, the case grew larger and more complicated, attracting the attention of the international community. Her case became well known after a bloody riot in Singapore to defend Natrah, who was attempting to be Christianized and Islam, which was being insulted by the pro-colonial press at the time. The conflict began in 1949 when the Eastern Administrative Officer discovered Natrah at her school in Terengganu. Natrah's marriage to Mansur Adabi on August 1, 1950 made her public. This is because just 3 days before the wedding, Natrah was returned to Cik Aminah by the Singapore court after the Dutch government lost its custody claim against her. Natrah's life has changed dramatically since the wedding, and she has been ordered to return to her biological parents in the Netherlands. Chaminah was directed to bring Natrah to Singapore and was offered 500 Singapore dollars in exchange for handing over Natrah. Natrah's tragedy was representative of the importance of Islam and Christianity when a 13-year-old girl had sparked her own polemics over her religious status. The actions of the Malay community throughout Malaya are united at this time despite UMNO's decisions not to intervene in this tragedy has in fact carved a beautiful history in the folds of the country's history. After the Malayan Union, the Natrah event was an event that succeeded in uniting the Malay community as a whole. Natrah married to Mansur Adabi in hanging marriage at his father's house at Serangoon Road, Singapore. Natrah was 13 years old and eligible for marriage under Islamic law at the time, while Mansur was 22. Sergeant Hartog was urged to reclaim Natrah with the assistance of the Dutch government because of the spirit of racism and thick ethnocentrism against Christianity. Dutch society at the time was dissatisfied with the religion of Islam to which Natrah adhered. They are adamant about keeping Chaminah and Natrah apart as long as Natrah is re-Christianized. When the case is mentioned again, the Chief Justice issues a third order to be heard in court regarding the validity of the marriage and custody of Natrah. According to Dutch law, a child under the age of 16 has the right to live with her mother or her father. Chief Justice of the High Court of Singapore at the time of the decisions to use Dutch law, whereas Natrah was already eligible to marry at that age, is based on Islamic law, having reached puberty. And Chaminah's appeal was denied yet again, and Natrah remained in the Netherlands and converted to Christianity.
The next is natural riots. It can generally be seen that several dominant factors were causing the great upheaval at the time. First, the British media had spread provocation about Natrah's willingness and joy to kneel before a statue of Jesus Christ while she was in the Catholic monastery. It is clear that the action of the British did not respect the religious sensitivities and dignity of Muslims. However, the report was different from local newspapers such as My Utusan Melayu and Warta Malaya, which reported otherwise. This situation has given rise to various speculations and public views toward Natrah. Furthermore, Malay Muslim opposition that Natrah case has begun to erupt since the Singapore High Court ruled that Natrah's original father, which is Adrianus Petrus Hartog, was Natrah's absolute guardian. The opposition occurred because the Malay Muslim community at the time felt challenged if Natrah was converted to Christian. The British had thus rejected Islamic law as a system of belief and thus also rejected Malay Islamic law. Therefore, it is this factor of sensitivity that has disappointed them and should be vehemently denied. The riots also involved various parties including Chinese and Indians, for example PKMM, PAS, PMS, and UMNO, albeit indirectly. The association assists in various aspects, especially financial, to cover the cost of court proceedings.
Natrah case has sparked various international reactions too, but among Muslims, based on nationalism and communism, especially when the British had acted by detaining all the leaders involved in the Natrah riots. Radical leaders and supporters in Indonesia also protested the detentions. They are said to be united on humanitarian grounds and concerned about the fate of Chaminah and Natrah's family. The Natrah riots took place on 11 September 1950, during which at the time of the court hearing, a group of 1,000 Muslims stormed in front of the court regardless of the police restrictions that were in control at the time. Then a second riot took place in the area of the Sultan Mosque and several other places around Singapore. British citizens in Singapore were attacked. A total of 18 people were killed and 173 were wounded while fighting with the British Army and police. The situations also saw a lot of property damage, such as buildings and cars near the field near the court being set on fire. This situation has led to a curfew for Singapore for 2 days and 2 nights.
Natrah's case has elicited various international reactions. Alike, they are Muslim who are based on nationalism or communism, especially when the British had taken action by detaining all the leaders involved with the Natrah riots. Radical leaders and supporters in Indonesia as well did not miss denying the arrest. They are said to be united on the basis of humanity and concern for the fate of the befell the family of Che Amina and Natra as well. The impact of this Natra case has also resulted in a total of 18 people being killed and 173 people injured during the fighting with the British Army and police. British nationals in Singapore have been attacked. Buildings and cars near the field near the court have been burnt. Singapore was placed under curfew for 2 days and 2 nights. A total of 119 vehicles were destroyed and 72 cases of fire. A total of 773 people were arrested, and several were hanged, mostly Malay and Indian Muslims. Furthermore, Natrah's issue is bound to have a particular impact on the individuals involved. There are effects that are significantly based on the conflict between these two parties. The most notable is the riots that took place involved the people of Malay at the time, namely from various backgrounds and race, to fight for the right of humanity in general, also maintaining one faith girls in particular. The Natrah's issues that took place was an effect of class relation and social conflicts. Exploitative and profit-oriented capitalism is seen as shaping social change through struggles between different classes within society that are in conflict with each other. In conclusion, the uprising of society during the Natrah riots in 1950 also opened our eyes of awareness in opposing colonialism. These bloody riots claimed 17 lives and injured dozens more. That's all from me, thank you.
Issue and problems with religious relations. Despite the fact that this issue has been going for a long time, deep conversation and discussion on the issue of Natrah continue until this day. This issue was just a custody battle, but then it had taken a religious turn, resulting in a major riot. This issue can be one of the greatest lessons in the story of Malaysia and Singapore in terms of religious sensitivity. The court's decisions disappointed the Muslim community in Singapore and Malaysia when Natrah was about to be apostate. According to Dr. Farahida, the law of apostasy is a great sin, and according to the majority of scholars, it is not only reciprocated with punishment, that pain in the afterlife, but punishable as a crime according to Al-Quran and As-Sunnah. Therefore, Natrah's issue in religious exchange have threatened Muslim Malay sentiment, and the dignity of Muslim is challenged. The Muslim community at the time was willing to riot and bathe in blood to save the girl's faith. Things got pretty tense as they waited for hearings the court decisions, as we know that Natrah returned to the Netherlands. After that, she left Islam and went back to becoming a Christianity, thus triggering the anger of the Malays in Singapore and Malaysia Peninsula, resulting in demonstrations and riots on the island on December 12, 1950, where 18 people died and 200 others were injured. The case of religious conversion was previously considered a sensitive issue by many parties, and it is not discussed publicly, and even the statistics are not made public. The story about Natrah was so tragic, and the court decisions were a travesty, but the Malay people's uprising was not a tragedy. They just need to uphold Islam and their dignity in the light of being labeled as a lazy persons, worthless and spiritless by the British.
As a conclusion, the Natrah issue gives us a lesson on how important it is for us as a country to maintain peace and respect for each other with different ethics, religions, and states. It is very important to take advantage of the Natrah case as a good example for our citizens, especially youth, due to the lack of respect in the community. The reflection can be seen by Natrah case in a Malay Muslim youth of today had failed to impress with many of becoming worse, not by taking Islam seriously. Instead, these young people question Malay history and insult their own Malay leaders who had sacrificed a lot to free them from the colonialism. Apart from that, We as a citizen have to be sagacious and well informed to evaluate all information issued by the media. All of these concerns are able to create peace and prosperity from any conflict and wars within and outside the country.